You found your way here for a reason. You clicked because lately it feels like you're being pulled in too many directions. People ask things of you, small favors, invitations, obligations, and you say yes, not because you want to, but because it feels easier than explaining your no. And slowly, without realizing it, your day is no longer yours. Your time, your energy, even your thoughts. They're scattered, diluted, given to things that don't matter, to people who don't understand how much it costs you inside. The Stoics knew this tension well. Seneca once said, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." When you don't know what truly matters, everything seems urgent, and nothing feels meaningful. But what if saying no isn't rejection, but redirection? What if each no was a quiet yes to your values, to your peace, to your deeper self? In this video, we'll explore 8 Stoic habits that will help you say no without guilt, cut through the noise and reclaim your time for the things that actually matter. You'll learn how ancient wisdom and modern clarity can come together, not to make your life busier, but simpler, stronger, and more rooted in what truly matters. And before we begin, if this resonates with you even a little, you might consider subscribing, not because you have to, but because somewhere inside, you know you're ready to start saying yes to your real life. Let's begin. You've been stretched thin long enough. It's time to remember that a focused life is a free life. Number 1. Noise is the enemy. Why clarity requires saying no. You wake up and before your feet even hit the floor, the noise starts. Notifications, messages, demands. A dozen small distractions pulling your mind in a dozen different directions. And without realizing it, you're already off course. Not because you're lazy or unfocused, but because your life is too full of noise to hear your own thoughts. Modern life applauds busyness, but the Stoics warned us. They saw noise not just as sound, but as mental clutter. The endless stream of opinions, requests, invitations, and temptations that drown out what really matters. Epictetus said, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why would he say that? Because when you start saying no to the unimportant, people will misunderstand. They'll question your priorities. They'll call you rude or distant or selfish. But clarity always comes at the cost of popularity. You can't hear your inner compass when everyone else is shouting directions. And saying no is how you quiet the room. Imagine a foggy window. When you're inside looking out, the world seems blurry, distorted. You can't see what's important, not because it isn't there, but because the surface you're looking through is clouded. Noise in life is like that fog. Your vision isn't broken. It's just blocked. Now picture wiping that window clean, one streak at a time. Each no you say is like another stroke that clears the glass. The world doesn't change, but your ability to see it does. But it's not just about clearing space. It's about what you're making room for. You have values, goals, dreams that whisper rather than shout. And you'll never hear them if you're always reacting to the loudest voice in the room. So when someone asks for your time, your attention, your energy, pause, breathe, and ask, will this help me become the person I'm trying to be? If not, the answer is simple. Kind but firm. No, not because you're better, but because you're finally becoming clear. Saying no doesn't make you a villain. It makes you a vessel. You're protecting the limited space you have to carry what actually matters. When you say yes to everything, you become a servant to everyone's agenda. But when you say no, you step back into authorship. You begin writing your own life again. Now, this doesn't mean you isolate yourself. Stoicism isn't about cold detachment. It's about intentional living. It's about choosing your actions rather than being dragged into them. You can say no with love. You can decline with warmth. You can walk away without shame. Because real clarity isn't cold, it's calm, it's still, it's focused, and it gives you the strength to hold your ground, even when the world around you is pulling at your sleeves. So here's your invitation. Let this be the season you clear the fog, not all at once, not perfectly, but intentionally. Begin with the small no's, the pointless scroll, the meeting you know doesn't serve you, the habit that adds more noise than meaning. Each one is a gentle reminder you are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to live a life that makes sense to you, even if no one else understands it yet. So ask yourself this: what mental fog have you let linger? And what would it feel like to finally see clearly? Saying no isn't rejection, it's protection, and sometimes it's resurrection. Let's continue. Number 2, the hidden cost of every yes you say. You say yes because it's polite, because it's expected, because it's easier than dealing with the discomfort of no. But what if I told you every yes you say comes with a hidden price tag? And most of us are paying for it with something we'll never get back: time, energy, focus, presence, peace. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't matter, you are saying no to something that does, even if you're not aware of it. The Stoic philosopher Seneca put it bluntly: people are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful. You'd never let someone walk into your house and take your wallet, but you let distractions walk into your life and rob your day, over and over again. Why? Because time doesn't feel tangible, because we think we have more of it. But if you counted the number of meaningless yeses you give in a week, the number of hours they cost, you might realize you've been trading your life away in pieces. Think of your time as a currency, but instead of dollars, you carry around golden coins. Each coin is 1 hour of your life, finite, non-renewable. Once spent, it's gone forever. Now imagine walking through your day, tossing those coins at anything that smiles at you: an unimportant task, an empty obligation, a conversation that drains you, a scroll through a feed that leaves you numb. At the end of the day, your pockets are empty. But what did you actually buy? Was it aligned with your values? Did it help you grow? Did it bring peace to your mind, or did it just keep you busy? Busyness is not progress, it's just movement, and often it's circular. You end up running in loops, saying yes to everything and wondering why you feel so far from yourself. But here's the truth: the more you say yes to what's unimportant, the less you are available for what is. You dilute your attention, you split your focus, you abandon your own goals in service of someone else's urgency, and slowly, you disappear from your own life. But there's another way. You can become conscious of what you're exchanging your time for. You can slow down, pause, reflect, and before you respond to that next request, you can ask yourself, what am I giving up if I say yes to this? Because every yes is a trade. You might not see the price immediately, but it always comes due. Here's a metaphor. Imagine you're holding a limited number of tickets. Each one grants access to a piece of your life. You can't print more, you can only give them away once. Now imagine standing in a crowd of hands reaching out for them. Some hands you know, some you don't, some that feel urgent, but aren't. Who do you give your tickets to? If you give them all away too quickly, you're left outside your own life, watching others enjoy time you no longer have. But if you pause, if you guard your tickets, if you give them only to what aligns with your values, you'll find yourself not just present but alive in your own story. And that's what Stoicism teaches us: to live deliberately, to value our time as sacred, to see each yes not as an obligation, but as a decision with real weight. Because how you spend your time is ultimately how you spend your life. So here's your reflection. What yes are you giving right now that your future self might regret? What would happen if you started valuing your time the way you value your money? or better yet, your soul. This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness, and awareness is always the beginning of freedom. Let's keep going. Number 3, indifference to the unimportant. The power of apatheia. You don't have to feel everything. You don't have to respond to every comment, engage in every debate, or hold on to every emotion that passes through your mind. But most people do, because somewhere along the way we confused being emotional with being human. We were never taught that emotional discipline is strength, not repression, not numbness, but clarity. The Stoics had a word for this, apatheia, not apathy, not indifference to life, but indifference to the things that don't matter. Epictetus explained it simply, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And that's the truth, isn't it? We rehearse arguments that haven't happened. We spiral over things we can't control. We obsess over opinions we don't even value. And all the while, we carry emotional weight that was never ours to begin with. Picture this. You're walking through a garden and feathers begin to fall from the sky. Soft, light, harmless feathers. They drift onto your path, into your hands, onto your shoulders. Now imagine treating each one like a stone, picking them up, tucking them into your coat, carrying them as if they're heavy. After a while, you're exhausted, not because the feathers were too much, but because you gave them too much meaning. That's what happens when we let every small disturbance become a major emotional event. A glance becomes judgment. A delay becomes rejection. A no becomes personal. The Stoics would tell you, you're allowed to put the feather down. You don't have to carry every irritation, every opinion, every imagined slight. You can choose stillness. So how do you practice apatheia in the real world? Start by noticing. Notice what triggers your reactions. Not to judge yourself, but to ask, is this worth my peace when someone cuts you off in traffic? When a text goes unanswered? When someone says something that stings? Pause. Breathe, and remember, you are under no obligation to react, because reactions are costly. They take your energy, your clarity, your time, and 9 times out of 10, they don't change anything. What does change things? Is your refusal to be moved by what doesn't matter. That's not detachment, that's wisdom. Now, this doesn't mean you become emotionless. It means you become emotionally selective. You care deeply about the right things. You reserve your reactions for what truly deserves them. You invest your feelings where they can grow into something meaningful. This is not the path of the cold. It is the path of the calm. Because here's the truth. You cannot stop feathers from falling. You cannot stop people from misunderstanding you or life from being unpredictable. But you can stop carrying what weighs nothing. And in doing so, you become lighter. You become freer. You unburdened by noise you never needed to absorb in the first place. So ask yourself now, what emotions are you carrying that you could have let pass? What are you gripping that you could have released? And most importantly, what would it feel like to finally walk lightly again? Apatheia is not about closing your heart. It's about opening your mind and reminding yourself, not everything deserves space inside you. Let's move forward. Number 4, the space between stimulus and response. It happens so fast, doesn't it? Someone says something careless, and before you can even think, your body tightens, your voice rises, your mood shifts. You've already reacted, and only afterward do you realize you gave away your peace for free. But here's the good news. You don't have to keep doing that. There is a moment, small, quiet, almost invisible, between what happens and how you respond. The Stoics lived in that space. They understood that you are not your first impulse. You are what you choose after the impulse. It's why Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. You can't control everything life throws at you, but you can train how you respond, and that changes everything. Think of a musician about to strike the next note. They don't rush. They pause, they hold the silence deliberately. That pause isn't a mistake, it's part of the music. The same is true for you. Your power isn't just in your actions, it's in your pauses, that breath, that moment, that decision to not respond on autopilot. That's where mastery lives. But let's be honest, most of us don't pause. We react out of habit, out of emotion, out of wounded pride or tired nerves. And then we regret, we apologize, we spiral. So how do you build that pause? You start small. The next time you feel provoked, instead of responding immediately, ask yourself, what's the most honorable version of me do right now? This question does something powerful. It breaks the momentum. It shifts you from reaction to reflection. Over time, this space becomes more natural. It becomes your second nature. It becomes your armor, not to keep others out, but to keep your inner calm in. Because not every insult deserves your reply. Not every mistake needs your shame. Not every inconvenience requires your stress. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to choose stillness. You are allowed to respond with intention instead of instinct. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine you're a mountain, firm, silent, unmoved. Around you, storms swirl, winds howl, rain lashes, lightning flashes. But the mountain does not react to every gust. It does not collapse in the face of chaos. It simply remains. You are the mountain and the world. The world will always storm, but you don't have to be swept away. The Stoics didn't become peaceful because life was easy. They became peaceful because they trained themselves in that tiny sacred space between stimulus and response. They practiced restraint. They cultivated self-command. They valued their inner stillness more than momentary release. And so can you. Here's the practice when something triggers you. Count to 3 in your mind. Notice what's rising, the heat, the tightness, the rush. And then say quietly, inwardly, this is a test and I do not fail. That one pause, that one decision might save your energy, your relationship, your peace. And over time, you won't just react slower. You'll feel different, calmer, more rooted, less at the mercy of the world around you. So ask yourself today, when was the last time I truly paused before I responded? What would my life look like if I made space between what happens and how I show up? The answer is stillness. And in that stillness, you reclaim your power. Let's move on. Number 5. Saying no doesn't make you cruel. It makes you honest. You want to be kind. You want to be available. You want to be someone others can count on. So when someone asks for your time, your help, your energy, you say yes. Even when you're tired. Even when you're stretched thin. Even when the yes feels more like a slow betrayal of yourself. Why? Because saying no feels cruel. But the truth is, it's not cruelty, it's honesty. And sometimes honesty is the kindest thing you can offer to others and to yourself. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Wasted time isn't always loud or obvious. It's often hidden inside polite obligations, inside hesitant maybes, inside fearful yeses that should have been clear nos. Imagine a garden. To keep it healthy, you don't just water the flowers, you prune. You cut back what's overgrown. You remove what doesn't belong. You shape it not out of cruelty, but out of care. Your life is the same. Boundaries are the shears, and saying no is how you make space for your most important yeses to bloom. Still, it's hard, right? The guilt creeps in. The what will they think questions. The I don't want to disappoint them, fear. But here's what most people don't realize. When you say yes to things that go against your values, you're not being kind. You're being confusing. You're teaching others that your time doesn't matter, that your energy is unlimited, that your boundaries are optional. And slowly people come to expect from you what you never really meant to give. But there's a different path, a stoic path, One where you don't speak from guilt but from groundedness, where your no is gentle but firm, direct but compassionate. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't need to apologize for protecting your peace. You simply decide, this is not aligned with the person I'm trying to become. And here's the unexpected truth. The more honest you are with your no, the more valuable your yes becomes. People start to trust that when you commit, you mean it, that your attention is not scattered, that your presence is intentional, that your time has weight, and that earns respect, not always right away, but over time, deeply. Let me give you a metaphor. Think of a lighthouse. It doesn't chase ships. It doesn't run along the shore trying to explain itself. It stands firm and bright and lets its light do the speaking. That's you. You don't need to chase approval. You just need to stand in your clarity and let the right people find their way to your light. So what's the practice? Start small. Say no to one thing this week that you usually would have said yes to out of guilt. It could be an event, a favor, a conversation you're not emotionally equipped for. Don't over-explain, don't delay, just say, I can't take that on right now. Or, that doesn't align with my current priorities, and then breathe. Notice how your body feels, the relief, the space. That's your life re-expanding. That's your honesty showing up. So ask yourself, where have you been saying yes out of fear when you should have said no with love? Where are you letting guilt write your calendar instead of your values, because every no spoken from your truth is a yes to something deeper. And the world doesn't need another agreeable person. It needs more honest ones. Let's keep going. Number 6, the freedom of fewer choices. You wake up and already you're faced with decisions. What to wear, what to eat, what to check first, email, social texts. Should you go out tonight? Should you say yes to that invitation? Should you start that project now or later? You're flooded, not with problems, but with possibilities. And it sounds like a good thing, right? More options, more flexibility, more freedom, but too many choices create a different kind of trap. Paralysis, anxiety, exhaustion, because every decision, even small ones, costs mental energy. And the more decisions you pile on, the less clarity you have left for what actually matters. This is where Stoicism offers you a powerful gift: simplicity. Seneca warned us, he who is everywhere is nowhere. You can spend your life dabbling in everything, or you can go deep on what truly aligns, but you can't do both. Think of your life like a backpack. Every option, every possible yes is something you try to carry, a hobby you might start, a social event you could attend, an opportunity that sounds interesting. Each one goes into the bag. Before long, you're weighed down, not by burdens, but by maybes. The irony. None of these choices are inherently bad. They're just too many. And that's the danger. You become tired from carrying things you never actually use. But the Stoic path, it invites you to lighten the load. The solution isn't doing more, it's deciding more clearly. It's building a life with fewer, better choices, habits that simplify routines, that remove friction, priorities that filter out noise. You wear the same type of clothes, not out of laziness, but out of clarity. You block off time to create and protect it like gold. You say no to scattered options so you can say yes to focused action. You begin to design your day instead of reacting to it. And in that, you find peace. Let's use a metaphor. Imagine a beautiful room. It has light, space, harmony. You walk in and breathe deep because there's nothing unnecessary inside. Now imagine cramming that room with clutter. Boxes, gadgets, scattered clothes, random decorations. Suddenly it feels smaller, heavier, harder to move in. That's what too many choices do to your life. They clutter your mental space. They leave you reactive, not reflective. But when you simplify, when you design your environment and decisions with intention, you create that calm, open room again. You return to yourself, So what's the practical step? Start reducing unnecessary decisions. Automate what doesn't need variation. Create defaults for your morning, your meals, your work blocks. Unsubscribe from digital noise. Cut down your commitments to the ones that actually move you forward. And most of all, when you feel indecisive, ask, does this add clarity or complexity? The answer will show you the way. Because here's what the Stoics knew. Freedom isn't having endless options. Freedom is having focus, knowing who you are, and acting from that place without apology. You don't need to chase every open door. You just need to walk through the right one fully present. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose less. So ask yourself now, where in your life are you drowning in choices? What could you eliminate to move more freely? What would change if your days were designed, not flooded? You're not missing out when you simplify. You're reclaiming space for what matters most. Let's keep going. Number 7. Don't be needed. Everywhere, be present somewhere. You're dependable. People know they can count on you. You're the one who says, sure, I'll help even when your own plate is full. And while that sounds noble over time, it starts to hollow you out. You find yourself scattered, half here, half there, present in body but not in spirit. Why? Because you've been trying to be everywhere for everyone, and in doing so, you've become nowhere for yourself. The Stoics warned us of this slow erosion. Epictetus said, man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties. And one of the most subtle anxieties, the fear of not being needed. The belief that your worth is tied to your usefulness. But the truth is, you don't need to be needed everywhere. You just need to be present somewhere. Let's be honest. You've stretched yourself to meet expectations that were never yours, to keep up with everyone else's fires, to fill every silence with service. And now you're tired, not just physically but spiritually. You've become a candle lighting a dozen rooms, but flickering in all of them. What if instead you chose one room, one space, one purpose? What if you stopped scattering yourself and started showing up fully? Let's use a metaphor. Think of water. If you pour it over a wide, flat surface, it spreads thin, covers a lot, but it never gets deep. Now pour that same water into one narrow channel, and it carves through stone. That's the power of presence. Not just being available, but being intentional. Depth over reach. Impact over appearance, stillness over scrambling. But how do you shift from being everywhere to somewhere? It starts by recognizing the cost. Being needed everywhere sounds flattering, but it often means you've trained people to expect your constant availability. And that expectation becomes a prison. You start responding out of guilt, not choice. You become reactive, not purposeful. But when you begin to focus your energy on fewer tasks, fewer people, fewer commitments, you become more grounded, more real, more effective. People begin to notice not just that you show up, but how you show up. Here's a practice. Pick one place in your life, one relationship, one passion, one value, and commit to it with your full attention this week. It might mean saying no to something else. It might mean turning off your phone. It might mean sitting quietly and listening without multitasking, without rushing. Notice how it feels to be all there, to not be pulled in 5 directions at once, to give the gift of your presence, not your fragments. And when you're tempted to fill every gap, to respond to every call, to be everything for everyone, pause. Ask yourself, am I choosing this? Or am I avoiding the discomfort of not being needed? Because sometimes growth means stepping out of the spotlight. Sometimes it means letting others figure it out. While you tend to your own fire, you're not selfish for conserving your energy. You're smart, you're strategic, you're stepping into a version of yourself that's more solid and less scattered. You weren't meant to carry the weight of everyone's expectations. You were meant to carry your purpose and to carry it with both hands. So ask yourself now, where am I spread too thin? Who or what deserves my full presence that I've only been giving half of? And most importantly, what would happen if I allowed myself to not be needed everywhere, and instead started being present somewhere? You don't need to prove your worth by your availability. Your value comes from your focus, your clarity, your calm. Let's continue. Number 8, train your will to resist the non-essential. Every day you're tempted, not by obvious things, but by the small, harmless-looking distractions. A quick scroll, a harmless yes, a task that looks productive but pulls you away from what actually matters. And it doesn't feel like a big deal until it becomes a pattern, until your days blur together, full but forgettable. Here's the truth the Stoics knew. Self-control isn't a personality trait, it's a practiced discipline. Epictetus said, "Discipline yourself and others won't need to." Meaning, if you want to live well, you don't wait for someone else to hold you accountable. You train your will to resist the non-essential, because every small distraction you surrender to, every impulse you obey, is a tiny withdrawal from your inner strength. Imagine a gate. Behind it is your time, your focus, your peace. And standing guard at that gate is you. Now, picture every non-essential thing as someone knocking. "Can I just borrow 5 minutes? It's only a small task. This won't take long." If you open the gate for everything, you're no longer guarding your life. You're just managing chaos. But if you train your will, if you stand tall and say, "No, not now, not important," you keep your space clear, you protect what's sacred. This is about more than productivity. It's about sovereignty, because here's what most people miss. Every time you resist a distraction, you're not just avoiding something, you're building something. You're building discipline, you're shaping identity. You're forming a mind that isn't pulled around by every urge or offer. It's like lifting weights. At first it feels awkward, but each repetition strengthens you, and eventually the distractions still show up, but they don't own you anymore. You feel them, you acknowledge them, but you don't obey them. That's power. Let's bring in a metaphor. Think of your attention like a flame, left unprotected. It flickers at every breeze, every ping, every request, every temptation. But place it inside a lantern, and that same flame becomes focused, steady, untouchable. That lantern, it's your will, and the thicker you build it through discipline, the more consistent your light becomes. You don't burn out, you shine on purpose. But how do you train your will in practice? Start with small daily choices. Delay gratification by 10 minutes. Say no to a second helping. Stay silent instead of defending yourself. Work 10 more focused minutes without checking your phone. Each small moment is a rep. Each no is a silent yes to your strength. And here's the unexpected benefit. As your will grows, so does your peace. You stop overthinking. You stop chasing. You stop needing validation from the outside. You become governed from within. That's the Stoic ideal. To live from the inside out, not the outside in. So ask yourself, where am I still letting the non-essential in too easily? What do I keep saying yes to out of habit, not conviction? And what would change if I treated my will like a muscle and trained it one deliberate choice at a time? You don't need perfect control. You just need practice. Because each day you choose the essential over the easy, you become more you. More stable, more clear, more capable of facing the world with calm, focused eyes. You don't resist the non-essential to be harsh. You do it to be whole, to make space for what your deeper self has been asking you to notice. So train your will, not once, but daily. And eventually you'll look around and realize you're no longer being pulled. You're walking on purpose. Let's close this journey saying no is the most loving thing you can do. You've spent so much of your life saying yes. Yes to people, yes to noise, yes to things that tug at your energy but never return it. But by now, you know the truth. Every no you say is a yes to something deeper. It's a yes to your time, to your values, to your peace. The Stoics never asked us to withdraw from life. They asked us to engage with life intentionally. And intention begins with discernment, with the courage to pause and ask, does this truly matter? Because if you don't guard your time, someone else will fill it. If you don't set your own rhythm, chaos will set it for you. And if you don't learn to say no, you'll spend your life being everywhere, except where you're meant to be. Let this be your reminder. Stillness is strength. Boundaries are clarity. And saying no when done with love and calm is one of the most powerful and generous things you can do. For yourself and for the world that benefits most from your focused present self. So as you step forward from this video, don't try to be everything to everyone. Just be someone grounded to yourself. If this resonated with you, you're welcome to join me here again, not out of urgency, but because this space honors stillness, and sometimes that's the greatest yes of all. Stay calm, stay clear, and keep walking the path that's truly yours.